Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ascension Teachings. I'm your host Peter Maxwell Slattery and thank you for joining me. So going on from the last episode, I'd like to now go on to Antarctica and let's look at what's happening there. We're finding pyramids. This has been over a lot of news sites and it's being covered. So lots is coming to light about our ancient past, as we covered mainly in the last few episodes as well. So from the Shiji material, let's look into that now. Each of you individually and as a collective has your own book. This book is continually being written on multiple levels and it is eternal. Your history goes back a long way, your glyphs tell part of the story, the forgotten tablets of old and what's still underground in Australia, New Zealand, Indonesia, America, South America, Antarctica, Siberia, Canada, the Middle East, the Gobi Desert, Africa, India and Russia, and what's under the oceans in multiple areas. All of these represent history going back so far that it's unfathomable to most. Hope I got that right there. So look at this, Göbekli Tepe. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly as well. I'm not good, I'm dyslexic as well if people don't know that, but I'm doing not too bad with this series, am I? Here we go, we've got some more. This was recent. Early humans reached the Greek islands 200,000 years ago. So even mainstream news is starting to look at this stuff and going, we're finding new stuff by the day that doesn't make sense for what we've been told in the history books. Quite simple, isn't it? Now here, there's been a 280 million year old fossil forest discovered in Antarctica. Antarctica wasn't always a land of ice. Millions of years ago, when the continent was still part of a huge southern hemisphere landmass called Gondwana, trees flourished near the South Pole. We're seeing proof that there's been, at least thriving land in Antarctica and now the pyramid. So now we're going to go into the Nazis that were influenced by the fallen Atlanteans. And that's why they're going to Antarctica. Now, from what I'm understanding, is that the Vril Society that we hear about that was apparently in contact with extraterrestrials, I later found out through my own contacts that it was actually the Atlanteans that were still here. Some of them are in inner Earth, and there's many different civilizations in the Earth, or inner Earth, which is honeycomb-like in nature. So there's a lot to this. So now when the Atlanteans hooked up with the Nazis, this was pretty much the inception of the Fourth Reich and the secret space program. So from the Shiji material, as these things are coming to light over many years, much has been amped up from both sides of the war. Implants and nanotechnology are being used by the negative forces that control the populace, and also Black Ops, super soldiers, the secret space program, and those working with the reptilians and other self-serving races. In other words, artificial intelligence and the lower light have many resources. And so before it happened, I had information coming to me from Shiji that Trump was going to reveal a space force. But what I've been told has actually happened and why he's doing it is because he found out about the SSP program, the secret space program. So do with that what you may. I'm not asking you to believe me, but for my own self, I find that pretty weird, and then more confirmation that that's actually what happened. And I still get blown out by a lot of this stuff on a daily basis. So let's just sort of come into modern times a bit. We've had so much stuff happen with otherworldly intelligences that even today, I think it's up around 900 military and corporate witnesses now that are part of Dr. Stephen Greer's disclosure project. So these are people, some of them that would trust in the time of war, meaning those that are in military compartments, whether it's the Navy or the Army or the Air Force. And then you've got the corporations that invent a lot of the technology that don't get oversight, which is how they get away with a lot of this, meaning these technologies, because it's not oversighted by the US government. I even know and have a story here in Australia. I've told this before, I'll go into it quickly. So I was in a shopping mall one day, you guys call it in America, and in Australia we just call it a shopping centre. And it was in Melbourne, and I was approached by a bloke that just dropped his shopping baskets and looked at me. Now, I didn't know if this was a fan, if it's somebody that hated me. I didn't know. I didn't know if I was going to have to get ready to protect myself. And long story short, this bloke said that he just emailed me, which I did see the email, and he works somewhere in Ferntree Gully in Melbourne for Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Now, he said that he was part of a back engineering program on flying sorts of technology where what they were doing there actually was the blueprints, the engineering for these alien reproduction vehicles, ARVs, and sending it off to America to where they would actually build these devices, these crafts. And so why this got me was because I had another bloke tell me the same story about 10 years beforehand, and then I've heard a Stan Deo's story pretty similar to this as well, which is another whistleblower who previously worked for the FBI, hooked up with somebody that knew that he was working on anti-grav technology, and then he was sent to Australia to continue his research. So there's sort of 3 whistleblowers, 2 of them that I've met personally, that confirm each other's story. And so what I'm saying is we have over 900 people, or Dr. Gree does in the Disclosure Project, that are willing to testify to US Congress about the ET reality. There's photographic evidence, videos, hardware, materials, and witnesses. So that is pretty darn compelling evidence. And anybody that's new to this, even my some people close to me, I showed them the first 15 minutes and they wanted to continue to watch the 2001 Disclosure Press Club conference that was actually funded by the White House. And they were just compelled by it and just wondering, why haven't we heard about it? And these are the things, it's such in our face in such a mundane way that most people just don't recognise what's going on or have done the research. And like Stanton T. Friedman used to say, God bless his soul, they've already got their minds made up. So what can you do about that? So now let's go into, some more modern time stuff that's going on. Now, since Project Blue Book, the US government said that they didn't investigate UFOs, but they were caught out with Rendlesham Forest, which was a UK incident, and there's been other incidences that they've been caught out investigating involving UFOs. And now in recent times, we've got the Pentagon coming forward that UFOs are real with news reports, and that the Navy's saying it, and we've had the Nimitz case that has come forward with pilots that have filmed this anomalous object. Now recently, my footage was actually analysed and put up to the Nimitz case along with somebody else's footage, and they look pretty much eerily similar. Though what they described was like a white Tic Tac. What I saw and what my footage is of a flying saucer that was made of a type of liquid metal that went like donut at times and then resealed in on itself. And I had 13 witnesses there to that event in December 2017. Even now, we've had tens of thousands of people since the 80s go to ECETI Ranch, James Gilliland's ECETI Ranch, which I've got ECETI Australia, and James and I are pretty tight and have been working together for about 6-7 years now. And as I said in previous episodes, or in a previous episode, I filmed crafts coming out of that mountain. They go in there. Anybody around the world can go there, and it's just funny the amount of skeptics that have gone there and they've gone, Pete, I thought this was full of crap, I thought I could explain it, and then they go there and experience it. They check the satellite trackers, it's not a plane, they can't describe fully what they're seeing, and they can't reason with what they're seeing except to go, this is, I can't explain it, it's anomalous. So this is happening all around the world. Even myself, everywhere I go, I seem to have experiences, whether it's with the bangs or the crafts. So this stuff's happening worldwide right now, here today. And how many exoplanets are there now? So here's an article from NASA. Let's just look at this quickly. To date, nearly 4,000 exoplanets have been discovered and considered confirmed. However, there are nearly 3,000 other candidate exoplanet detections that require further observations in order to say for sure whether or not the exoplanet is real. So there's 3,000 unconfirmed, but at the moment 4,000 confirmed. And I've heard higher statistics than that. This is going back some time now as well. Remarkably, the first exoplanets were just discovered about 2 decades ago. We live in an extraordinary time where in the span of a single generation, the centuries-old question, are there planets orbiting other stars, has been answered with a resounding yes. Since the first exoplanets were discovered in the early 1990s, the number of exoplanets has doubled approximately every 27 months. So by the day, we're seeing that there is life or Earth-type planets like ours in many other places. And the thing is, we've got to look at this multidimensionally as well, because there are beings within our solar system in different densities, and we're not seeing exactly what's going on. Let's go into this now. Circumstellar habitable zone from Wikipedia. So this is what Wikipedia says. On November 4th, 2013, astronomers reported, based on Kepler data, that there could be as many as 40 billion Earth-sized planets orbiting in the habitable zone of sun-like stars and red dwarfs in the Milky Way galaxy. 11 billion of these may be orbiting sun-like stars. Think about that. This is way more than what was previously mentioned. So what needs to be also perceived with this is how we see the stars. When we're looking at the Pleiades, for example, we're looking at them 400 plus light years after the fact of what they were, because it takes that many light years to reach our eyes with what we're seeing. So we're not seeing star systems exactly as they are, but again, for example, with the Pleiades, they're coming back from far off in the future and coming back. So the Pleiades, even though time's an illusion, they don't sort of exist with our time. Even with Atlantes and Lemuria, they travelled back from the future incarnated for the Earth-human experience. So, yeah, just chew on that if you can. So looking at this, we've been at a war for thousands of years, and it's best to arm ourselves with as much knowledge as possible. But to tell you the truth with that, knowledge doesn't mean jack without implementing wisdom with it. So just think about that as well. Using wisdom with knowledge, that's where true change takes place. And as we go down this path, we are considered crazy people like ourselves, but we are tapped into reality. And I don't want to be considered sane in a world, like David Icke says, where condoning the killing of children and war, rape and murder is allowed. And people say, rape and murder and war, these things won't stop. Well, yes, they will. And how, you ask? Think about it. With a higher level of consciousness, there is no need to be doing things like that. So as we raise our frequency, as we raise our consciousness, that which once held us back no longer holds us back. And we don't have those desires or needs or wants or negative thoughts or negative actions, because we're coming from a higher place. And that higher place, and the key to it, is love. Quickly, what I want to go into now is the temporal war. And the temporal war is us in the future coming back, interacting with Earth humans. Now, what I'm meaning by that is, years ago, I wrote a book called Operation Starseed, and I mentioned Operation Starseed earlier in the series. Now, why this is important is that I was shown a lot of different things and solar events. I was shown the beings that I'm working with. And I was shown that from solar events, and later Shiji did mention the solar flash, and I've also been shown a pulse coming from the sun hitting Earth, and there's a frequency that goes back to it as well. But long story short, I was shown that through these solar events, some of the people on the surface die. Those that don't die, they actually go to the Pleiades and Orion and other places from beings in Orion and the Pleiades that came back in future to grab those Earth humans. And they end up evolving on those planets in the Pleiades and the Orion system. Some of these Earth humans that we hear at this time during those events that went underground, they ended up being manipulated by the lower lights. So greys and the government behind the government, not the actual government, but what's behind that orchestrating things, and the reptilians. And what I was shown was that they even broke up into factions, and some of them ended up putting outposts in space and coming back trying to rectify what was going on. So there's this temporal war going on. They wanted to, divert what had happened in terms of the Earth human being manipulated and turned into some types of greys. And there's many different types of greys. Later on from that, I was shown that even though this happens, it doesn't happen anymore. And that was a defining point in 2012, was that all timelines came together and it was create your own reality time. Now, here's something that happened recently in Alpha Centauri C, which is, I guess, their type of solar flash. So watch this.
During the super flare, the amount of radiation that's created by Proxima Centauri is so much that it's actually 100 times more powerful than is needed to kill any living thing on our planet. Even tardigrades. Even tardigrades would not survive. So basically, this solar flare is life cleansing. It just destroys everything on the surface. This really kind of puts a dent on the theory of life.
Now, this is sort of confirming the information that the Elohim showed me in that book from that experience where I just talked about, where I was shown world events in the solar flash and things like that, or solar events, which seem to be pointing towards the solar flash. So, from that experience that I told you about, that was actually an experience where things were holographically projected to me from the Elohim. And so we now seem to have confirming evidence of this solar flash that has happened in Alpha Centauri C. And most likely coming towards our way soon. How soon, I don't know, but I feel that we're on the precipice of something big. And here's something I'd like to share with you now that Corey Good shared with me, which was from the Joe Rogan show. So, Robert Scooch, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's been working on the pyramids and all this sort of stuff for many, many years, and he's very highly respected. Now, what we're seeing is that there was massive solar events, 9,700 BC, from ice core data samples. With that said, it's theorized that solar outbursts ended the last ice age, creating the floods. Now, basically what I want to show you quickly is Dr. Peratt's work, and this is the image here. Now, what's been found around the world is these sort of humanoid stick figures with a circle on each side. Now, what this says is Dr. Peratt has demonstrated that ancient petroglyphs, rock art found all over the world are indicative of exceptional plasma formations in the ancient skies as recorded by ancient peoples. Think of the northern and southern lights forming stick figures. He and his colleagues have documented examples from over 130 countries. So look at this. These aren't people in this rock art. This is depicting what happens in the sky from solar events, and they were in caves, and they're all around the world at the exact same time. Well, it's theorized, but I find this is very interesting data. So what we'll do now, I just want to wrap up this episode here, and again, thank you very much for watching this episode of Ascension Teachings, and what we'll go into now is another exercise. Now, imagination is creation in the other realms. I've seen them create crafts from imagination. They even communicate with us in our imagination, meeting otherworldly beings, other facets of ourselves and our higher self. So what I want you to do now is just another exercise, and the more exercises like this that you do, it's enhancing your multidimensional abilities. We all have them, and the more that we work with them, the more that we can tap into them and do amazing things. So use your imagination with this exercise, and it's very simple, and all I want you to do is imagine yourself engulfed in a beautiful orb of whatever coloured light that you want. And come back now and just see how you're feeling. Sometimes through our thoughts, ideas and concepts can come through, which are also communication. So I'm trying to show you yet very simple things that once you're aware of your thoughts and how some of them aren't yours, whether negative or positive, and that's why you do a clearing, and that's a form of clearing as well, blasting your energetic field, you can start to recognize multidimensional mind communication. It's almost like being on a drive on a trip, when you're driving the car for hours and you have that conversation with yourself. A lot of the time that's not you having a conversation with yourself, though that can happen with other aspects of yourself, but it can be communication from abroad. So we'll wrap it up there. Thank you again for watching this episode of Ascension Teachings. I'm your host Peter Maxwell Slattery, and I'll see you on the next episode.